It's time again for Northwestern Outdoors Radio, the show covering fishing, hunting, and all sorts of outdoor recreation and destinations right here in the region you live and play in. Northwestern Outdoors is brought to you every week by Max Lure Company, makers of the world-famous wedding ring spinner, by Loophole, America's Optics Authority, and by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter. Northwestern Outdoors is also sponsored by Walleye County in Northeast Oregon, where you'll find both nature and fun. By Chad's Coastwide Sports Fishing, offering you the affordable Canadian fishing trip of a lifetime. And by Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors. So grab your fishing rod or hunting gear, load up the boat or lace up your boots, and let's head outdoors with your host, John Cruz.
We are having a great time at the Bighorn Outdoor Adventure Show in Spokane. I'll tell you what, this is always one of my favorite sportsman shows of the year, and it's usually our last sportsman show of the year, too. If you come here, you're going to find not only us at the Northwestern Outdoors Radio booth, but several hundred other exhibitors. There's lots and lots of fun stuff for the kids, and there's some great seminars, too, that'll help you up your fishing and hunting game. One of those seminars is about elk calling and elk hunting, and is being presented by well-known huntress and Team Elk television personality Christy Titus out of Prineville, Oregon. When you get to the Bighorn Show, be sure you stop by our booth. Not only do we want to chat with you, but we're also giving away a $100 gift certificate from Max Lure Company and a Striker Backcountry Camp Stove from Camp Chef to one lucky person who signs up for the free Mac Attack newsletter. We've got a fantastic show for you this week covering freshwater fishing, saltwater angling, turkey hunting, and more. We're going to start off by talking to Keith Jensen. He's the owner of Big Wally's Guide Service. Keith will be telling you about the bass, walleye, and trout fishing opportunities available at that big, scenic eastern Washington reservoir stretching from Coulee City to Electric City called Banks Lake. On the saltwater side of things, Captain Rob Abner, owner of CQ Charters, will give you the lowdown about fishing for halibut, bottomfish, and salmon in the Strait of Juan de Fuca. And then we get to talk to Mike Hammond, the former owner of that well-known sporting goods store in Yakima known as Hammers. He's back in business again. He's taken over the old grumpy sporting goods store, renamed it Hammers Precision Outdoors, and is doing great things in the central Washington city. We'll talk to Mike and learn more about his journey during an extended Max Minute. Turkey season is right around the corner, and Rich Mann with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife joins us to share a Turkey Hunting 101 seminar with you. Even if you're an experienced hunter, you're going to want to tune in for this because Rich has got some great tips that will help any turkey hunter, no matter what their experience level, bag a gobbler anywhere in the Northwest this spring. Speaking of turkey hunting, we'll tell you about several youth turkey hunting seminars coming up in Oregon and Washington, and we've also got news covering everything from a tragic avalanche fatality to anglers engaged in some Frankensteinish surgery on steelhead to political news about a Republican frontrunner for president, Senator Ted Cruz, and his stance about public lands management. If you are a fan of public lands access for fishing, hunting, hiking, and more, you probably won't like what he has to say. Senator Cruz is not the only one talking about our public lands and access to them. David Sparks is also tackling the subject on this week's edition of Sportsmen Spotlight and shares some very interesting insight into this important topic. Sportsmen Spotlight is brought to you every week by Chad's Coastwide Sports Fishing, offering affordable and incredible all-inclusive saltwater fishing packages out of Port Hardy, BC. Go to coastwidesportsfishing.com to find out more.
Why Representative Mike Simpson of Idaho is so good for sportsmen like you and me. David Sparks, Sportsman Spotlight. I often do stories on U.S. Representative Mike Simpson of Idaho on the agriculture side. But let me tell you why Representative Simpson is so good for sportsmen. He recently told a House committee hearing on the U.S. Forest Service budget why public lands matter to Idahoans, or for that matter, any sportsman anywhere.
Let me tell you why people live in Idaho. They live in Idaho because they love their public lands. They like access to them for recreation, for hunting, for fishing, for all the activities that they do on public lands.
On the other hand, there are others, like Representative Raul Labrador, who view public lands as an onerous burden, an underutilized resource that should be transferred to the states for management or even disposal. Guess what happens if you dispose of your rights to public lands? Again, Mr. Simpson.
Let me tell you what happens when you sell those public lands. We just sold 30,000 acres in Idaho to a couple of Texans. It was a lot of fun. And they all of a sudden denied access. So all of a sudden people can't access their favorite fishing hole or their hunting grounds. And in Idaho, that doesn't mean you just go around the 30,000 acres. It means you get a helicopter and have to go over it or come in from the other side from Montana. And that's a problem. And that's why we like our public lands.
So, sportsmen, when you consider going to the polls, this is one issue that you may want to weigh in on very heavily. This is David Sparks for Sportsmen Spotlight.
A quality and affordable fishing adventure is waiting for you off Vancouver Island with Chad's Coast-Wide Sports Fishing. Located in Port Hardy, British Columbia, you can drive or fly to your all-inclusive guided fishing vacation. Whether you're after big salmon, heart-fighting halibut, or a cooler full of red snapper and ling cod, you can catch it all here. Better yet, your lodging, meals, and fish processing are all taken care of. Want one more reason to go? The price. With the Canadian dollar exchange rate where it is right now, your U.S. dollar goes further. Space is limited, so go to coastwidesportsfishing.com to book your trip. That's coastwidesportsfishing.com for an incredible BC fishing adventure.
You demand quality performance from your binoculars, whether you use them in the field, on the water, or at a stadium. But you don't want to spend a fortune. That's where the BX Mackenzie binoculars from Leupold come in. These armored, waterproof binoculars are both comfortable and dependable. Look for your Mackenzie binoculars at quality sporting goods retailers near you. BX Mackenzie, bringing your world into sharper focus, only from Leupold.
I'm gonna take you fishing, honey. You're gonna love it. Gonna get up before the sun and rise above us. Got a bamboo pole.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're broadcasting from the Wenatchee Valley Sportsman Show. We're talking to guide Keith Jensen. He's the owner of Big Wally's Guide Service. And Keith, you do most of your guiding up at Banks Lake, don't you?
Correct, yeah. Mostly up on Banks there for walleye. That's definitely the number one thing. You know, the popularity is there. And so, yeah, number one and for me is walleye on Banks, yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about April, May walleye fishing. What does that look like on Banks Lake?
Yeah, you know, really that's prime time. You know, this year the walleye have really kind of started off a little slower, but just because we had kind of a typical winter. We had a cold winter, which we should have here, and so the water temperatures have stayed cold, which means for the walleye, you know, that they're going to start getting going in March, but then really getting going there in April and May. So this year is setting up to be kind of a normal, I would call it, year on Banks, that where April and May is a fantastic time to fish for them.
Now, let's go ahead and talk about size, and then we'll talk about numbers. So when it comes to size, I know Potholes Reservoir has been giving up some really big ones. Everyone knows about the Mid-Columbia River as a place where the next record walleye is going to be caught, but I don't hear too much about Banks in terms of the size of the fish there.
Yeah, but there are some really quality fish there on Banks, and it's really, I would say, that early time of year, that, you know, that March time, especially March and April is that time when the bigger fish really seem to be the most available. But, you know, it's not uncommon, you know, to pick up those 8 to 10 pound walleye there on Banks as well. Not just Potholes and not just the Columbia, but on Banks as well.
And I've always heard that numbers are really good at Banks Lake. I mean, if you want a bunch of walleye, and folks, if you haven't tried them before, they are a tasty fish. Let's tell folks about, you know, a good day. What does that look like in terms of numbers and average size of the fish?
Yeah, you know, the nice thing was the last July 1st, the state changed the fishing regulations statewide on the walleye regulations, and that includes Banks. It went to now an 8 fish limit per day per person, with the slot limit being now 12 to 22. And so on Banks Lake, limits are the norm. So we're getting limits of walleye each and every day. But really, the nice thing, there's so many walleye in Banks that you can really, you know, because 12, 13 inches is pretty small, you can, you know, toss those back and still get a quality limit of those 16, 17 on up fish. You know, a little more quality, a little more meat on their bones for, like you said, John, you know, the great eaters. So the numbers it's just fantastic on Banks. And the numbers the last couple of years just keep, you know, shoot up. You know, we're on an upward cycle really on our walleye on Banks.
You know, Banks Lake, it's a big, long reservoir. It goes all the way from Coulee City to the south, up towards, well, Electric City, I guess, up to the north there. How many miles of lake do you have there exactly, and where do you like to fish for walleye?
Yeah, we have 27 miles, so the lake is 27 miles long. And the nice thing about it, though, depending on the time of the year, the lake goes through cycles, the walleye does. Early in the year, March, April, May, you're looking around mid-lake and north, so from Steamboat Rock, that area across from Steamboat is a popular area called Barker Flats. That's a great spot early in the year in April, in May, as well as up at the north end, up at Electric City in April and May. Once you start getting into the summer months, walleye are notorious for, migrating long distances, and they do that big time on banks. And, come the summertime, a lot of the population of the fish will be at the south end. And so early in the year, mid-lake on north, up to Electric City. Later in the year, you're really looking at, kind of reverse of that, from mid-lake down south.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Keith Jensen, the owner of Big Wally's Guide Service, about walleye fishing at Banks Lake. Something else I want to talk about when it comes to walleye is how to catch them. And one thing that's always surprised me about Banks Lake is that in the spring, you will find these fish really, really shallow.
You will, for sure. That kind of spawn time in the spring, and so it's not uncommon. In a spot, for example, the Devil's Punch Bowl inside of Steamboat Rock there. That's a shallow bay, and those walleye will push right into 6, 7, 8 to 10 foot of water, and so you're right, John. They really fish shallow, and that's the funnest way for me. I love catching those walleye when they're shallow. You're looking at using a small half-ounce, three-quarter-ounce bottom bouncer and a spinner rig, like a Max, with the smile blade and whatnot. And the nice thing, too, is on banks, you always are going to find them. You're going to find some walleye shallow, but there's always going to be some mid-depth and deep as well. And so if you're not finding them deep, try mid-depth. If you're not finding them there, then they're shallow. So you always have groups of fish in all different, levels of the lake.
Bottom bouncers with Max Lure products like Wally Pops or Double Whammies or the Smile Blade Slow Death rigs, those are all favorites for me. But I'm guessing, especially in a situation where you're finding these walleye really shallow, crankbaits has got to be an effective method too.
Big time. And, and I actually do some seminars on just, crankbait fishing for walleye. Really starting about mid-April, I would say, is when really I start looking at, pulling some crankbaits, especially first thing in the morning for walleye. And then it just picks up from there, as you get into May and later on, the crankbait bite can be really, really, really strong. The nice thing about fishing with the crankbaits is you cover so much water. When you're fishing with a bottom bouncer, you're fishing under 1 mile an hour typically, whereas when you're fishing with the crankbaits, you're fishing much faster. You're fishing about 2 to 2.5 miles an hour, so you cover a lot of water, and by doing that, you're catching fish with the cranks, but you're also locating fish. So if that crankbait bite dies, which it sometimes will do if the sun gets high in the sky, well, you've located fish though now. Now you can go back to those same areas that you found fish with the crankbait. Now you can go switch over back to the bottom bouncer and spinner rigs and continue to catch fish.
Great stuff. Again, this is Guide Keith Jensen, owner of Big Wally's Guide Service. We've been talking about walleye fishing at Banks Lake, but I'd like to turn my attention to bass, because I know there's quality smallmouth bass fisheries, largemouth bass fisheries historically in Banks Lake. As a matter of fact, the state record largemouth bass was taken out of Banks Lake in eastern Washington, but I haven't heard too much about either one of these fisheries in recent years.
Yeah, but it's still very, very strong. Still some of the major bass tournaments in the state are still held on Banks, which alone kind of speaks for the fishery. That's another fishery. We're talking about walleye with, in that early season like April. That's something you can always count on Banks Lake. You get basically to April 1st, and the smallmouth will go from their deeper haunts, the 30 to 50 foot depth where they winter, and boom, they are shallow come the 1st of April. And it typically doesn't really matter what the water temperature is. It's that length of day come that time of year where those smallmouth move shallow, and it's pre-spawn time then for the smallmouth. So they're not, all they're thinking about in that first part of April is eat. They're munching down primarily on the crawdads, and so that's a great time to hit the shoreline again with crankbaits. Cover lots of water. You're looking for the gravelly, rocky shorelines on Banks Lake, because when you catch a smallmouth on Banks in early April, he's got buddies with him. There's going to be a bunch of fish there. So you catch one fish with a crankbait. Keep casting that same area. There's going to be more smallmouth there with them.
We're starting to run short on time. Folks, if you're interested in going to Banks Lake, beautiful destination in the spring. Usually the weather is fine. The temperatures are mild. Lots of sunny skies. If you're looking for places to stay, there's several resorts along the lake, and Steamboat Rock State Park is one of the best state parks in the Washington State Park system. And if you want to go fishing, you should go with Keith, because as you've heard, he's got a lot of knowledge about the lake. Great guy to hang out with. Let's go ahead and give folks your website and phone number so they can contact you, Keith.
Yeah, you bet. No, my website is just bigwalliesguideservice.com, and then my phone number is 509-770-8318.
Again, that phone number is 509-770-8318. And the website again, bigwalliesguideservice.com. That's bigwalliesguideservice.com. Give Keith a call. Go fishing at Banks Lake. Especially this spring, you're going to have a good time. Keith, thanks for telling us all about this in Northwestern Outdoors.
Oh, my pleasure. Always great talking to you, John, and happy fishing, everybody.
It ain't much, but if you bail, it'll float. I'm gonna take you fishing, honey. You're gonna love it.
Walleye anglers all over the Northwest are raving about the new Smile Blade Spindrift Walleye Lure made by Max Lure Company. Lance Mers is with us here to tell us more about it.
This lure is fantastic. We've got the patented Smile Blade. We've got a pill float that keeps it just off of the bottom where the fish like to bite. And that Spindrift hook is absolutely phenomenal. You can tip it with any kind of bait.
Tip it with a crawler, tip it with a leech, whatever you tip it with, it's going to catch more fish. It's the Smile Blade Spindrift Walleye Lure, only from Max Lure Company.
Looking for the ultimate cooking machine for your backyard or patio? Look no further than Camp Chef's new pellet grill and smoker. With user-friendly features like an auto ignition, digital readouts, and internal meat temperature sensors, it's easy to smoke the tastiest salmon, ribs, brisket, and turkey you'll ever eat. And an innovative system makes cleanup a snap. Everyone will want the food you're cooking on your Camp Chef pellet grill and smoker. The quality smoker that's second to none. Find out more at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Wake up to winter in Wallowa County. Grab your camera and don your skis for some Nordic skiing adventure at Salt Creek Summit. Or spend the day on the family-friendly slopes of Fergie Ridge. And when evening comes, enjoy some of Wallowa County's fine dining and gaze at the stars before you dream of tomorrow's adventures. Your winter adventure begins at www.wallawacountychamber.com.
You're back with more of the great outdoors on Northwestern Outdoors Radio with John Cruz.
It's time again for another Max Minute.
Fish on!
Brought to you every week by Max Lure Company. With us here today is a friend of Max Lure Company. It's Mike Hammond. He is the owner of Hammers Precision Outdoors, located in Union Gap, Washington. And you're here at the Central Washington Sportsman Show. Mike, it's good to see you again.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Now, Mike, you've kind of been in and out of the scene. I mean, Hammers was a fixture in Yakima for years. It went away, but now you're back. How did this happen and where are you at?
Well, I tell you, I came back to work for Fred Meyer and got an opportunity. It was presented to me, didn't really expect it. Wanted to be back in the business, but thought it'd take a while. But the opportunity arose and worked with the prior owner of Grumpy's. And back in June, we took possession. It took till about October to get things cleaned up, get my name on it, and it's been fun ever since.
So let's go ahead and talk about some of the things folks are going to find in Hammers Precision Outdoors. Obviously, you've got quite a few Max Lure products, and that's one of the reasons we're talking here today, but you've got a lot more than that.
Well, the Grumpy's, for those people that shop Grumpy's, we kept everything in Grumpy's with the exception to gun safes. It just took up too much space, and there's a lot more that we want to do with the store. As for the fishing, we've expanded fishing. We're really trying to expand in the walleye, the sockeye, the kokanee, and basically in the bass, the things that are there 12 months out of the year. So we're expanding there. The gun section has expanded. We kept the surplus, and looking forward to spring, looking forward to summer.
So before we go, let's give people your address and your hours and days that you're open.
So we're at 2318 South 1st Street in Yakima. Right now it's wintertime hours. We're open 9 to 6 Monday through Saturday. As soon as we have May 1st, we'll be open 7 days a week. We'll open 10 to 4 on Sunday and 8 to 6 with 8 to 7 on Fridays.
That's Hammers Precision Outdoors. Go check them out. Next time you're in Yakima, I think you're going to be glad you did. Mike, thanks a lot.
Thank you, John.
Leupold Gold Ring Optics are built to perform at the highest level, shot after shot, year after year. Our rifle scopes, binoculars, spotting scopes, rangefinders, and more always come through when you need them most. That's why our American-built products have a lifetime guarantee. Or as we like to say here at Leupold, they are guaranteed for a lifetime of performance, not a lifetime of replacement. Find out more about our top quality gear and our lifetime guarantee at Leupold.com. Leupold, America's optics authority.
Today's line of portable camp stoves from Camp Chef have come a long way from your father's propane stove, featuring matchless ignition, more cooking power, and in some cases a built-in grill or extra burner. Look for the complete line of Mountain Series stoves at your local sporting goods store or online at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
The road is calling you to experience one of Oregon's 7 wonders, the Wallowas. So grab your hiking boots and camera and capture the beauty and grandeur of Northeast Oregon's Wallowa County. Experience nature like never before when you saddle up and ride into the Eagle Cap Wilderness, hike the trails of the Wallowas, hear the wind rush through the bunch grass and view the wildlife of the Zumwalt Prairie, or ride the churning waters of the wild and scenic Wallowa, Snake, and Grand Ronde rivers. This summer, take the road that leads to wonders. It begins at WallowaCountyChamber.com.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. Turkey hunting season is coming up in April, and we've got just the guy to give you a Turkey Hunting 101 seminar here on our show. It's Rich Mann. He's with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. He's been a turkey hunter since 1984, and he actually teaches seminars at sportsman shows all over the state to make you a better turkey hunter. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Rich, let's go ahead and talk about turkeys in Washington State. We've got 3 species. Where are they distributed, and where are people going to be hunting for them this spring?
So basically, Western Washington, we have what's called the Eastern Wild Turkey, which comes from the east coast of the United States. And in Eastern Washington, we have the Rio Grande Wild Turkey and the Merriam's Wild Turkey. So the Merriam's comes from the central U.S., the Rio, kind of the southwestern portion of our country.
2 best parts of the state for turkey hunting.
Probably northeastern Washington, up near the Colville, Kettle Falls, well, North Spokane North, basically. And that'll be mostly Merriam's. Or down the Blue Mountains in southeastern Washington, and that'll be Rio Grande subspecies.
So I know a big part of turkey hunting is finding them before the season starts. So let's go ahead and go through some of the basics about scouting. If somebody hasn't done turkey hunting before, isn't sure exactly where they might be, how do you go about finding turkey?
Probably the easiest way is driving and looking. We got a lot of these birds, especially this time of year, down on the flats. Haven't got up into the hills yet because of snows and those kind of things. So it's a good place to start. I tell people use any resource you can find. School bus drivers in the area, DOT workers, county road workers. Those folks are out all the time and see those birds and where they're at.
So let's say you found some turkeys, or people are telling you where the turkeys are. Let's talk about, well, I won't say the first word that comes to mind. We'll say scat. How is scat helpful when it comes to scouting?
So when you look at turkey scat, actually a tom makes a different shape than a hen does. A hen's is kind of a little glob like we see with the chicken, I guess, if you're in your backyard, or a goose poop, if you will. The tom's is more elongated and actually will come out in almost a J shape. So if you got that elongated versus just a little plop there, tom is elongated, hen's the plop.
Tell me this isn't why we call them jakes.
No. The jake's just that yearling bird from the previous year. But no, that's not it might be a good reason to go there, but I don't think so.
The things you learn on Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Moving on from turkey scat to identification of turkeys. Let's go ahead and talk about that, because for those who aren't familiar with turkeys, knowing which ones you can shoot might be a challenge.
Yeah, so in Washington, I mean, the law in the spring says gobblers are birds with visible beards. And a beard is looks like a piece of horsehair sticking out of the chest. And on most of the toms or the males, it's on an adult gobbler, it's 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 years old. It can be up to 10, 12 inches long. On a jake, which is a 1.5 year old bird, it's anywhere probably from 1 inch to 4 inches. And some hens will have a wispy one. So that's one feature. The other one is generally when we're hunting, we're looking at the head. The head on a male is typically much more red. The female is more of a grayish, brownish color. You got to look close because depending on what the sunlight is coming through the wattles and stuff. And the males will be 18 to 20 pounds, typically an adult male. A jake will be 16 to 17, and most hens are 15 and under as far as weight goes. So 2/3 the size on a hen versus a tom.
All right, so you found your turkey. You know which ones you're looking for in terms of which ones are shootable. Opening day is here. April season is going on. What comes next? Let's go ahead and talk about, first off, gear that you'd recommend people take to the field.
For me, gear, I go full camo and would suggest that. You'll hear old stories from years ago. A guy shot him in their blue jeans and a white T-shirt. I think they're a little more paranoid than that, at least in our states. So I go full camo, headgear, gloves, hat, all the way down. So that's the first thing. I shoot a shotgun that is camo. It doesn't have to be. I shoot a 12-gauge shotgun. A 20-gauge will do. The key with shotguns and ammunition and chokes is patterning, making sure you know what your distance is. We're shooting at the head typically, so you want a good dense pattern at whatever distance you're going to shoot. And the most important thing to me after camo gear is something to sit on that's soft. I tend to, at times, will sit in the same spot for 3 to 4 hours. If I've got birds in the local area and maybe not coming right away, but sometimes they'll gobble in the morning, they've got hens, they won't break from those hens until 2 hours later. And then they'll remember, I heard somebody over there, and that's where they'll come. So a good, thick, comfortable seat cushion is worth its weight in gold in the turkey woods.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Rich Mann with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife about Turkey Hunting 101 and how you can have success this spring, not just in Washington, but anywhere in the Northwest where you're hunting turkeys. Getting back to shotguns, what's the preferred choke and what's the preferred load?
The state of Washington, we require that you shoot at least a 4 or smaller size shot in this state. I shoot 5 or 6 shot, 3-inch shells out of my firearm. I use an extra full turkey choke on my shotgun. I've got a 24-inch barreled gun. But I'll be honest with you, every shotgun shoots differently. So you can put one load in your firearm and your buddies, and you're going to pattern different, even with the same choke if it's a different firearm. So we used to give with a bunch of buddies, we'd all buy different types and then go out and shoot and see which works best for us. And that, to me, was the best way because you didn't have a big investment in shot shells that you're never going to use again.
Very good point. And along the same lines, even if you've got number 4 shot, make sure you get different manufacturers because you will find Federal and Winchester and Kent, they all pattern differently. Now, one other thing we need to talk about, steel shot, lead shot, copper-plated shot. What kind of shot are we using here in Washington State?
Washington State doesn't restrict what you can use. I've had better luck probably with copper-plated lead. Honestly, I shoot heavy shot. They've made it really expensive, but that's what I shoot because it patterns the best in my gun. My son's got a Mossberg 12-gauge, shoots Winchester out of that. I shoot a Winchester shotgun and I shoot heavy shot. And then I've got a kid with a 20-gauge and he's shooting Federal stuff. So it all depends on how things match up, and that's a combination of the firearm, the choke, and the ammunition.
All right, so let's get to the hunt itself. Obviously, you're going to get up early. You want to be there before the sun rises, and the turkeys are out of their roosts. You found the place you need to go because of your scouting. You set up by a tree or a rock or somewhere. Turkey decoys, turkey calls. Let's talk about that.
Let's start with calls. I'm going to back you up just a touch. I prefer to get in the woods if I know where turkeys have roosted before they get up in the morning. Don't set up right on a roost because if you mess up a roost, they won't come back. So 70 to 100 yards of that roost, you can typically call them once they hit the ground. So if you know where they're roosting, get in there before daylight, keep the headlamps to a minimum, get set up, be cold while the sun's coming up, and then be ready to go. That's early morning stuff. As far as calls go, most people have 3 different types. They're friction calls, which are either box calls or slate calls, or you can use a diaphragm call if you're used to having one in your mouth. Probably the slate or the pot and peg, they call it, is the easiest to learn to use. Box calls aren't too hard either, and you can get a million different styles, a million different brands of those things. But if you can make a yelp, a cluck, and a purr to begin with out of those things, you're probably good to go.
And decoys, needed or not?
Probably not. I use some. I carry them with me. You can use hen decoys to kind of attract that tom. He sees it and comes over. Be careful when you do that. Don't set it so it's visible from a quarter mile away because Mother Nature, the hen, comes to the tom. So if you stick the hen out there where he can see her a long ways away, he's going to puff up and fluff up and do his dance and wait and say, come to me. So I try to set up in small openings and that kind of thing so when the tom hits him, now he sees my decoy. So the hen's kind of an attraction, a distraction so they don't see you, a confidence kind of a thing. And you can use a tom decoy if you want. If you do, I suggest you use a Jake, and that's more of a dominance thing. You got the older tom, sees the youngster in his neighborhood with the girls he's supposed to be dating, if you want to put it at the end. And so he's coming over and they're going to have a little tussle and someone's going to get their feathers kicked.
Well, and hopefully those feathers are going to be kicked by that shotgun load. So we are out of time, but before we go, does the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife have information about turkey hunting on their website?
We've got our seasons and stuff. Our hunter education program, in conjunction with the turkey hunting clinics and seminars we're doing, has actually got a booklet that they put together. It's about 20 pages and kind of covers A to Z to at least get you started. And that might be a good place to begin with.
All right, so drop by your local Department of Fish and Wildlife regional office, and you can probably pick up a copy of that. In the meantime, to find out more information about seasons and regulations, go to wdfw.wa.gov. That's the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife website, or whatever Fish and Wildlife website governs the state you live in. Rich, thanks for telling us all about this on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Wish everybody best of luck.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after, whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out in the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
Pheasants Forever is working hard every day to ensure there's more wildlife habitat for the future. To join us, go to pheasantsforever.org.
You're back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. It's time for news and reports from the field. We talked earlier in the show about the management of our public lands. We aren't the only ones talking about it either. Presidential contender Ted Cruz spoke on the subject recently while campaigning in Idaho. Here's what he had to say to the Idaho Statesman and other media outlets.
Too much land in this country, particularly in the West, is owned by the federal government. It's not right. It doesn't make sense. And we need to transfer that land back to the states, or even better, back to the people. It shouldn't. The people of Idaho know much better what to do with the land here than does the federal government. There's no reason for the federal government to be the largest landowner in this country. You know, in my home state of Texas, 2% of the state is owned by the federal government. I got to tell you, in Texas, we think that's 2% too much.
In case you didn't catch David Sparks' earlier discussion about this on Sportsmen Spotlight, here's the problem with what Ted has to say. 98% of the land in Texas that Ted is bragging about is privately owned, which means folks like you and I don't have any access to it for fishing, hunting, hiking, wildlife watching, camping, or other outdoors activities. Could you imagine if Ted was in charge and started turning over management of our national forests to the states? The states certainly don't have the budget to manage them, and they would do exactly what they're doing in Oregon. They would sell them off. And once your public lands are sold, you are done. You are not going to get on them again unless you want to pay quite a few dollars to do so, and even then, you still might not be able to get on them. So, if you want to be shut out of the vast public lands we have access to here in the Northwest, then go ahead. Vote for Ted. But if you want to recreate in our national forests, on BLM lands, on Bureau of Reclamation lands, and waters, etc., well, let's just say you might want to be careful who you vote for. Heading to the Umpqua River in Oregon, we've got a bizarre story from the Oregonian about some Frankenstein-esque surgeons who seem to think if they cut the adipose fins off of adult wild steelhead, they will magically heal and become harvestable hatchery steelhead. So far, all they're doing is allowing infection to set in and kill the fish. It's ethics of the worst sort, and it's against the law. If you're on the Umpqua River in southern Oregon and see somebody doing this, do us all a favor. Pick up the phone, call the Oregon State Police. This needs to stop. Staying in Oregon, we've got sad and ironic news about a man who worked to instruct people about the danger of avalanches. Turns out he has been killed, you guessed it, after being caught in an avalanche. Spokesman Review columnist Rich Landers reports Wallowa Avalanche Center Director Kip Rand was killed last week in a steep fall and avalanche while skiing near Chief Joseph Mountain in the Eagle Cap Wilderness. Wallowa County Sheriff Steve Rogers says it appears Rand was caught at the top of an avalanche and carried 600 feet down a nearly vertical slope. Rand's skiing partner told authorities that Rand initially survived the slide, but was dead by the time help arrived. The Wallowa Avalanche Center says Rand grew up in Boise, Idaho, and was an experienced guide and avalanche instructor. Sad story indeed. Next up on Northwestern Outdoors Radio, time to talk a little bit of saltwater fishing, and we're going to talk about it with Captain Rob Abner, the owner of CQ Charters. CQ is on the Olympic Peninsula, and there's some awfully good fishing there, especially come May-June timeframe for halibut and bottomfish.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go into our Ling Cod season now, which will start here in April, and then we're going to move right into our halibut season, which will be in May. This year we're looking at halibut season that will be May 7th, May 12th, 13th, and 14th, and then May 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th. And so just 8 days at Area 5 this year, which will also overlap with Area 4 to try to bring down our numbers a little bit. We've been doing really well for halibut out in the Straits of Juan de Fuca, and we're looking for another good year.
Limited days to participate in this halibut fishery, but what's the outlook this year compared to the last couple of years?
Well, the last couple of years have been great. I mean, actually, we've been over our numbers, so that's been the problem. That's why the limited days now. All the seasons are overlapping this year to try to bring down those numbers, so the outlook for halibut's great. I mean, if you have time to get there, come.
So when we're talking about halibut fishing in the Strait of Juan de Fuca, basically western Washington, what kind of size are we talking about here, and what's the limits?
Well, halibut goes one fish per day per person, and the size of halibut is average fish in Washington is 10 to 20 pounds. But if you're fishing in the Straits, you could get into a big one. You know, if you look in the average fish caught out in the ocean, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds. The big ones that get caught are caught in the Straits of Juan de Fuca, Freshwater Bay, out in front of CQ River. Those are where you read about the 200-pounders. So if that's what you're after, CQ is the place to do it.
Okay, and what's the drill in terms of catching them? Are you basically just dropping some heavy jigs down to towards the bottom?
Yeah, catching halibut is not exactly fun fishing. Lots of weight, lots of work, but big-time reward. Let's
turn our attention to Ling Cod and bottom fish. Again, that's kicking off in April over in your neck of the woods. The Ling Cod, what's the limit there? How big do they get?
Typically, Ling Cod in the Straits of Juan de Fuca can be a little smaller than out in the ocean. And then there's a slot also, so you can't really keep them that big anyhow. So you're looking at fish 26 to 36 inches in the Strait, and there's a lot of Ling Cod to be caught.
And what's the limit for Ling Cod?
2 fish per day per angler.
There are a lot of people who just go nuts over Ling Cod and just swear that it's the best tasting fish out there.
Well, Ling Cod is going to have more of an oily taste to it. So if you're into the taste of fish, Ling Cod is going to be a little more fishy for you. And halibut is going to be a little more of your bland meat. So if you want something less fishy, halibut, it's great. If you want something a little more fishy, Ling Cod's your fish. So.
What other bottom fish do you have out there for folks?
Oh, we got lots of rockfish out there, but in the inside of the Straits, we have to let those rockfish go. Plenty of black and blue sea bass to catch to make up for it, though. That's a great fishery, and we enjoy that also.
So you're going to have to educate me here, because I always, thought of black and blue sea bass and rockfish as basically the same species.
Well, yeah, they are, but they're different subspecies. So what we're looking for is black and blue sea bass in the inland straits, and we're looking to release the China rocks and the vermilion and all those other types of rockfish, try to bring our numbers back up here in Washington.
2 more things before we go. What's the rates for a halibut trip or a bottom fishing trip?
Halibut fishing, we do two different fisheries. We do it out of Nia Bay, which is the big ocean. We charge $285 per head for that, and at a CQ we charge $215 per person. Much less travel time out of CQ. So those are the difference in the prices. And for bottom fish, we do $185 per person a day.
Last but not least, is there a website, is there a Facebook page where people can go ahead and find out more about booking a trip with CQ Charters?
Yeah, we have a great website. Look under cqcharters.com, and it'll give you all the information you need. It'll give you links to lodging in the area and different businesses in the area. We also have a Facebook page you can look up, and yeah, check us out.
So on Facebook, it's just simply search CQ Charters, and the website is cqcharters.com. I'm going to spell that for you. If you're not from Washington State, you might not be familiar with how that's spelled. CQ is spelled S-E-K-I-U. That's S-E-K-I-U, charters.com. If you live here in the Northwest, if you got a hankering for bottom fish or halibut, this might be your spring to go ahead and tangle into some. Thanks for telling us all about this on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Well, thanks, John, for giving me the opportunity to tell you about CQ.
Quality and affordable fishing adventure is waiting for you off Vancouver Island with Chad's Coast-Wide Sports Fishing. Located in Port Hardy, British Columbia, you can drive or fly to your all-inclusive guided fishing vacation. Whether you're after big salmon, heart-fighting halibut, or a cooler full of red snapper and Ling Cod, you can catch it all here. Better yet, your lodging, meals, and fish processing are all taken care of. Want one more reason to go? The price. With the Canadian dollar exchange rate where it is right now, your U.S. dollar goes further. Space is limited, so go to coastwidesportsfishing.com to book your trip. That's coastwidesportsfishing.com sportsmanfishing.com for an incredible BC fishing adventure.
Backcountry hunters and anglers, the men and women working hard to keep public lands in public hands. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after. Whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out on the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
One more time this week for Northwestern Outdoors Radio with John Cruz.
Let's run through some upcoming events together for all of you Friday and Saturday listeners in Montana. You might want to head to Helena on Saturday, the 19th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. In particular, head to Montana Wild and Spring Meadow Lake State Park. That's where Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and the Montana Wild Sheep Foundation are teaming up to offer a free youth outdoor educational experience. This youth event is an opportunity for families to participate in a whole bunch of outdoors activities, including archery, pellet gun shooting, laser target shooting, bighorn sheep displays, Boone and Crockett scoring clinics, and more. Sounds like a fun Saturday outing to me. We talked about turkey hunting earlier in the show, and if you've got a kid who wants to learn about turkey hunting, we've got some events for you. In Oregon, they are having their annual turkey hunting clinic for kids aged 8 to 17 at the White River Wildlife Area on Saturday, April 2nd. Registration starts at 7:30 a.m. The event runs from 8:45 a.m. to 4 p.m. The kids will learn everything they need to know about turkey hunting, and they'll actually go ahead and have a hands-on session where they pattern a shotgun, establish effective ranges, and hold that shotgun as a tom approaches. Pre-registration is required, but it only costs $10 and includes lunch for the kids. The deadline to register is March 28th. Maximum of 100 kids will be accepted, and each child must be accompanied by an adult. Just go to the ODFW website to register. Once you're on that site, just go to the ODFW calendar page for more information. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and the National Wild Turkey Foundation are also teaming up to host free turkey hunting clinics around the Northwest. There's going to be two at the Bass Pro Shop in Tacoma. First one March 26th, the second one March 27th. There's going to be one on March 30th in Spokane at the WDFW Regional Office. And on April 2nd, there's going to be a turkey hunting clinic at the East Wenatchee Sportsmen's Warehouse. And you know what? You don't have to be a kid to attend these either. Also in the Wenatchee area, but on April 1st is the annual North Central Washington Coastal Conservation Association Banquet. Kicks off at 5 o'clock at the Eagles Lodge on North Wenatchee Avenue. You can get your tickets through the CCA website at ccawashington.org. Just go to the North Central Washington chapter page. That website again, ccawashington.org for the North Central Washington CCA Banquet on April 1st. We'll see you there. Meanwhile, in Pocatello, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game is hosting a mule deer seminar on April 2nd at Idaho State University. It's a free seminar, runs from 9 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. The primary speaker is going to be Dr. Terry Boyer from Idaho State University. Idaho Fish and Game personnel will also be on hand to present information about the method for conducting population surveys and monitoring and the ins and outs of bonus point systems and 4-point rules. One other event to tell you about. It's taking place at Sportsman's Warehouse stores all over the Northwest, taking place Thursday, April 7th. It's Ladies' Night. That's right. Special night just for the ladies. There's going to be discounts. There's going to be raffles. There's going to be free prizes. There's going to be refreshments. There's going to be seminars. It promises to be a ton of fun. That's Ladies' Night at a Sportsman's Warehouse store near you, Thursday, April 7th. And with that, let's go ahead and give you your trivia question of the week. Some people call these fish water wolves. They can grow up to 4 feet long and have a mouth full of very sharp teeth. Fish biologists don't think much of these fish, but there are anglers who just love to fish for them. I'm one of them, by the way. In the Northwest, you'll find them in Montana, northern Idaho, and the far northeast reaches of Washington. What is the name of this toothy predator that some call a water wolf? If you think you know, give us your answer. You can do it on our Facebook page at Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Like our page, go to the post, and let us know what your answer is. Or you can do it through our website at northwesternoutdoors.com. Simply go to the Contact Us page and let us know the name of this fish. If you guess correctly, you are entered for a chance to win the $25 gift card we give away every week from Sportsman's Warehouse. The Facebook page again, Northwestern Outdoors Radio, and the website, northwesternoutdoors.com. While you're on the web and on our website at northwesternoutdoors.com, don't forget to click on our YouTube channel there and check out a recent edition of Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Listen to it while you're at work or maybe at home. And another internet station I want to tell you about, Reno Viola Outdoors Radio. You'll find it at renoviolaoutdoors.com. It's the home of WRVO Radio. It is nothing but outdoors programming 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We're part of the lineup, and we're proud to be there, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. The website again, renoviolaoutdoors.com. That's all for this week. If you're looking for something fun to do in Eastern Washington, come on down to the Bighorn Outdoor Adventure Show at the Fairgrounds in Spokane. It runs through Sunday. We'd love to say hello to you. Until next time, take care, God bless, and make it a point to spend some time outdoors.